Naomi didn't think anything could shake her more than the BRCA results hanging over Dani's house, like a storm cloud that refused to move. 4 days, the family's air felt thinner, every conversation turning into a careful dance around fear, biology, and the kind of future no one wanted to imagine. Naomi had been trying to hold the center, to be the calm voice when Dani's composure slipped, to be the steady hands that kept the home from collapsing into panic. She told herself that grief and anxiety had a schedule. You handled one crisis at a time. You didn't borrow terror from tomorrow. But Fairmont Crest didn't follow that rule. In a community built on polished gates and curated perfection, the ugliest truths were never patient. They arrived all at once. And they always arrived when you were already bleeding. It started with something so ordinary, it almost felt insulting. Naomi left the hospital, after a long appointment with Dani, her thoughts crowded with medical terms and the frantic urge to make a plan that could make fear feel smaller. She stopped at the Dupree office to pick up paperwork Dani needed, forms, referrals, the boring pieces of a life that still had to function even when your body threatened to betray you. The building was quiet in that post-lunch lull, the kind of quiet that made secrets sound louder. Naomi moved through the hallway as if she belonged there, because she did, because the Dupree name opened doors even when it shouldn't, and because she was too exhausted to consider that she was stepping into a trap. Then she heard it, voices, low and tense, coming from a conference room that should have been empty. She recognized Hayley immediately. Naomi had heard that voice before in family spaces, heard it trying to sound like it belonged, like it was entitled to its place at the table. But there was something different now. The edges were sharper, the confidence more desperate, as if Hayley wasn't performing for her husband anymore, but negotiating for her own survival. Randy's voice cut through next, too familiar to ignore, and Lynette's name landed like a weight. Naomi froze, not because she wanted to eavesdrop, but because her brain caught on a phrase that didn't fit, something about keeping the second identity clean, about documents, about the old trail. Naomi should have kept walking. She should have respected boundaries, because that's what sane people did. But sanity was a luxury, and Naomi hadn't felt rich in days. The BRCA results had already stolen her sense of control, and control was the one thing she'd always used to survive in Fairmont Crest. She leaned closer without thinking, her breath held tight in her chest. Hayley's voice dropped even further, and Naomi caught a name that wasn't Hayley's at all, another name, spoken carefully, like a weapon that could backfire if handled wrong. It wasn't a rumor whispered by outsiders. It wasn't a tabloid insult thrown across the gates. It was spoken with the cold familiarity of people who had rehearsed a lie for a long time. The shock wasn't only that Hayley had a secret. The shock was that the secret sounded organized, deliberate, built with partners and precautions. Naomi walked away before she could be seen. But the damage was already done. The truth had touched her, and now her skin felt dirty with it. For the rest of that afternoon, Naomi tried to convince herself she'd misunderstood. Stress distorts everything. Grief can turn fragments into monsters. Maybe she'd heard wrong. Maybe it was a business alias. Maybe it was nothing. She repeated those excuses like prayers, while her mind betrayed her, replaying every syllable with merciless clarity. She remembered the way Hayley had slid into the family, like she belonged there. The way she'd played the role of loyal wife with just enough softness to seem harmless. Naomi had never fully trusted her. Not because Hayley had done something obvious, but because Hayley carried herself like someone who understood the power of optics too well. Now Naomi saw that instinct wasn't paranoia at all. It was recognition. She had been sensing a crack in the mask, and today she'd watched it widen. Then came the second strike, crueler because it felt intentional. Naomi's phone buzzed late that night, while she sat on the edge of Dani's bed, pretending to read, while monitoring every change in her mother's expression. A message arrived from an unknown number. No threats, no demands, no dramatic confession, just a photo of a file cover, and a short line that made Naomi's stomach drop. It referenced the same unfamiliar name had Ava heard, paired with a date from years ago, and a location outside Fairmont Crest. A place Hayley claimed she'd never even lived. The image wasn't proof yet, not the kind that could survive daylight. But it wasn't random either. It was too specific, too precise, like someone was guiding Naomi toward the exact fracture point in Hayley's story. Suddenly, the question wasn't only whether Hayley had a second identity. The question was why someone wanted Naomi to know now why. In the middle of Dani's medical crisis, this truth was being pushed into Naomi's hands like a lit match. Naomi hated herself for how quickly suspicion spread through her. In Fairmont Crest, you learned early that information never moved without purpose. If Naomi was being fed this secret, it meant someone was using her either to destroy Hayley or to distract Naomi from something else. She considered the obvious possibilities, and each one was worse than the last. Randy and Lynette could have been careless, letting their conversation slip into the wrong ears. But the anonymous message felt like a deliberate escalation, as if a hidden observer had seen Naomi hesitate and decided to shove her forward. Was it someone who wanted Hayley out of Bill's life? Someone who wanted to fracture the marriage from the inside? Someone connected to the money and the power that always circled the Dupree family like sharks? Naomi wanted to tell Dani immediately, to turn this into a shared battle the way families were supposed to. But she couldn't, not while Dani was fighting an invisible enemy inside her own body. Naomi couldn't watch her mother carry two horrors at once. That's when the internal war began. The daughter desperate to protect her mother, and the woman terrified of being manipulated. Naomi didn't have the emotional bandwidth to become a detective. She didn't want to be dragged into another feud while Dani's future hung on medical decisions and genetic probabilities. And yet, every time Naomi looked at Dani's face died, but trying, brave but fragile Naomi felt the answer harden inside her. If Hayley had built her life on deception, then Dani's crisis wasn't separate from it. In Fairmont Crest, weakness invited predators. A BRCA diagnosis wasn't just a health matter. It was a fracture line in the family's armor. If Hayley's identity was a lie, then what else had she positioned herself to take once Dani's strength faltered? Money, access, control, even legacy. Naomi could already picture the quiet moves Hayley might make. Conversations with Bill framed as concern. Paperwork slid across tables when emotions were high. Decisions made in the name of helping the family that would somehow leave Dani smaller and Hayley larger. So Naomi did what she always did. When fear threatened to swallow her, she turned it into action. Not dramatic action, not reckless confrontation. Quiet action, precise action. She started with the smallest seams. She checked what she could, without raising alarms. Public records, old addresses, business registrations, anything that might tie Hayley to the other name. She searched at night, while Dani slept, the screen's glow casting pale light over Naomi's clenched expression. Each result that came up empty made Naomi's anger sharper, because it suggested Hayley had planned well, but absence wasn't innocence. Sometimes it was evidence of effort. Naomi followed financial breadcrumbs next, not hacking, not illegal, just careful observation. Small inconsistencies, a charitable donation receipt with a signature that didn't match. A forgotten email chain printed and left in an office tray. A slip of language from Hayley when she thought no one was paying attention. Naomi collected these fragments like broken glass, knowing that one wrong move could cut her. The hardest part was acting normal. Naomi had to sit at tables with family, listen to conversations about treatments and schedules, and not let her eyes betray what her mind was screaming. When Bill appeared, protective and reactive, Naomi studied him too, not with hatred, but with bitter curiosity. Did he know? Was he a victim of Hayley's performance, or a partner in the lie? Bill's devotion to Dani's crisis complicated everything. If he was rushing to Dani's side, it meant he still cared, and that care could either be noble or dangerous. Noble, if it was genuine love for the mother of his past. Dangerous, if Hayley viewed Dani's illness as her final competition, and decided the only way to win was to erase Dani from the story entirely. Naomi began to understand that the most terrifying version of Hayley wasn't the one who screamed or attacked. It was the one who stayed quiet, patient, smiling, waiting for the perfect moment to strike without leaving fingerprints. Days passed, and Naomi's world narrowed into two parallel realities. One was the hospital corridors, the genetic counselor's calm explanations, the way Dani's bravery, like exhaustion wearing makeup. The other was Naomi's private investigation, the secret folders on her laptop, the screenshots saved like ammunition, the anonymous number that went silent after dropping its bait. Naomi was stretched so thin she felt translucent. There were moments she almost quit, almost convinced herself that peace mattered more than truth. But then she would remember that first overheard conversation, Hayley's voice, Randy's caution, Lynette's urgency, and Naomi would feel the same cold certainty return. Lies didn't protect families in Fairmont Crest, lies infected them. And Naomi refused to let her mother become collateral damage, someone else's long con. The breakthrough came in a way that felt almost cruel in its simplicity. It wasn't a dramatic confession or a stolen passport. It was a document, misfiled among medical paperwork Dani had asked Naomi to bring home. A billing statement from a specialist, printed on letterhead, with a line of insurance information that didn't match the identity Hayley presented. It wasn't definitive yet, but it was enough to confirm Naomi wasn't imagining things. There it was again, an echo of the second name, abbreviated, hidden like a stain under fresh paint. Naomi stared at it until her vision blurred, not because she was relieved, but because confirmation carried its own kind of grief. It meant Hayley had lied 4 years. It meant every smile, every concerned gesture, every moment of support might have been strategy, and it meant Naomi was now holding a truth powerful enough to detonate the family at the exact moment Dani needed stability the most. Naomi didn't confront Hayley. Not yet. Confrontation would give Hayley a chance to rewrite the narrative, to turn Naomi into an unstable accuser, to weaponize Dani's illness as proof that everyone is too emotional. Naomi understood how people like Hayley survived. They didn't fight with fists, they fought with perception. Naomi decided the only way to win was to gather something undeniable: paper trails, verified records, something that couldn't be softened into misunderstanding. Still, the secret changed Naomi's behavior in ways she couldn't fully control. She watched Hayley with a new intensity, hearing subtext in every word, seeing calculation in every pause. And Hayley, perceptive enough to sense shifts in power, began watching Naomi back. The air between them grew tight, like a wire pulled too far. Meanwhile, Dani's BRCA diagnosis pressed closer, demanding decisions, demanding courage, demanding that Naomi be a daughter first. That tension became Naomi's punishment. She was forced to choose, every hour, between the mother she loved and the truth that might protect her. In the quietest moments, Naomi felt guilt rise like nausea. What kind of daughter investigated secrets while her mother faced something so intimate and terrifying? But then Naomi remembered the unfairness of it all, how Fairmont Crest never allowed women to be fragile without consequence, how illness became weakness in the eyes of people hungry for advantage. Naomi wasn't abandoning Dani by chasing Hayley's truth. Naomi was trying to defend her mother's future from a woman whose entire life might be built on taking what wasn't hers. By the time Naomi finally closed her laptop one night, the evidence wasn't complete, but the shape of the story was clear enough to haunt her. Hayley had another identity, another past, and at least 2 accomplices who knew it. Someone else, an unseen hand, wanted Naomi to pull the thread. The question wasn't whether Naomi believed anymore. She did. The question was what Naomi would do with belief. Because in Fairmont Crest, exposing a lie didn't just destroy the liar. It destroyed everyone standing too close. Naomi stared at the dark window, seeing her reflection layered over the night outside, and realized the real hook of this nightmare. She wasn't sure which disaster would hit first. Would Dani's health crisis break the family before Naomi could act, leaving Hayley free to seize control? Or would Naomi's investigation erupt into a scandal so violent it would steal Dani's remaining peace? Either way, Naomi understood. She was no longer just a daughter trying to protect her mother. She was a fuse burning toward an explosion, and the moment she found the final